Yeah, I'd hate to say it, but this actually looks like a little water's been in here. Doesn't look too bad, but not the best either. Bearings don't look great. Here the chisel is needed to get under a sneaky little lock tab securing the hub nut. Once that's out of the way, the nut can now be loosened off. Oh, Jesus. There's a second one. Pretty keen about this not falling off. Oh dear. Not too bad. Things do look like they got a little watery, but I think this is all salvageable. All right. So if you have a closer look here, you can see scarring. And that's most likely where dirt and grime's been swept around, and if we were to reuse this, the oil seal wouldn't be able to do its job, and the axle grease will leak out, water would leak in, and eventually you're going to end up with a premature failing of a wheel bearing. So this guy's unserviceable in my mind. Now I am hoping that this stub axle is the same as what they used on the Series 2 and 2A, because if it is, then this can be replaced. They're a little pricey. They're around $150, $160, but what are you going to do? So, if the new one, arriving soon, fits this exact specification, then we can move forward in our restoration. Now our wagon is but a skeleton of its former self. It's time to inspect the leaf springs, the bushes, and the chassis. Here in the States, it's best to call it a frame. Start throwing around the word chassis and people will look at you like you're speaking French. What we're about to attempt here, I think, is the job I'm looking forward to the least. It is extracting and replacing spring bushes. Even just getting the spring off can be quite a mission. I've gone ahead and done the right hand side as we expected trouble, and sure enough there was quite a bit, so yeah, you'll see. We're digging around in the back of the chassis and discovered like a little bit of bubbling paint and a little bit of rust, and sure enough, knocked that out and it's like a malignant melanoma, much deeper underneath. So what we've done here is cut it out to the good metal, and even over here, and also found that the spring hanger is all rusted through as well, so that's cactus. We're going to have to cut that out and replace that. So now that's like 2 outriggers and 1 spring hanger that at least has to be replaced onto the chassis, and then with a more skilled welder than I, patch all this up. So this thing here is what I call the creepy cam. I'm going to put this in the chassis for inspection. Very handy for looking in hard to reach places, and I save a bucket load of money doing my own colonoscopies. If we have a look in here, there we go. You can see that it is a little nasty up the front, but as we go further back, it's acceptable. Now, if we come in from the top, and look down there, and you can see straight through. That's very nasty. That's the spring hanger, and that hole down the bottom that you see there, that's my finger. see straight through where the bush has got to go. So I think that's probably bad. I think that'll have to be cut off and replaced, unfortunately. Now everything's undergone a serious multi-week treatment of liquid wrench, and I've already loosened things up. So on this left side, at least it appears to be going a little smoother than it did over there. What we're really hoping for is no more rusty spring hangers, but that might be a fantasy. I'm not so sure yet. We'll see how it all goes. There's a little metal tab. There's a screwdriver. I had a screwdriver here. There we go. So they kind of hold these nuts in place. Make sure you get them off. I think the liquid wrench paid off. Alright, so this is good. We got a little bit of movement on those bolts. On the other side it was just fused in, and it's just become part of the metal. So this is promising. These back ones are a little sneaky because you don't just have the bolt that holds it on like it does on the front, but the threads of this bolt screw into this hanger thing, and if you start whacking away with a hammer you'll be thinking it's just stuck, but in fact you'll be smashing up your bolt and threads. Oh, it's ready to drop. We don't want things to be dropping, do we? Oh. Oh, the other one didn't come out like that. All right. Jesus. So this is the big job of trying to take out the spring bushes. So I have planks of wood laid out, sort of offset from these brackets that you see here. And just to start with, because these bushes are going to be quite difficult to get out, we're going to apply some heat. Having this piece of wood out the way might be good for this bit. Set fire to the workshop. Alright, now we've given this a bit of flame, we're going to attempt, support that there, to drive this out with a socket. I'm using a, I think it's a 19 impact socket. We'll see what happens. It's not an easy job. It was a stupid idea doing this without safety glasses. So I'm continuing with the heating, and I've found this piece of metal that I can get under here, because the more solid it is with a piece that won't obstruct the bush from coming out, the better. And I've also switched up to a 21mm impact socket, which just manages to fit within the eye of the spring. Let's try it. Crikey. Ah. Now I just got to get the socket out. Ah. Whew. There we go. One spring bush. 3, 6, 9, 12. Take one. 11 to go. As we proceed on number 2. You can see that this one looks like it's going to be an absolute blast. So I'm going to start bashing away at things, and I'll I'll see you guys in another 3 weeks. Next project, I'm going to be working on the springs now that I've finally got those bushings out, and that was no easy task. What I would like to do now is separate all the springs, grind back all the rust and crap, and spray in a dry graphite lubrication spray, reassemble them all, replace these bolts, kingpin in the middle, and done. Put the bushes in, and they should be ready to go whenever we get the chassis up and running. Not all of these bolts are held in by just a nut, but also a thread in the bracket. Oh, there we go, there's some success. I don't want to lose how they went on. It should be fairly obvious, but that's what we always say before a big disaster. Alright, these guys are buffing up quite nice. They're a little bit pitted, as you'd expect from from something that's very old, but they're coming up very nice. Yeah, almost as good as new. So I'm going to spray them with that graphite powder and start restacking them. Alright, now we've got our spring bushes out. The springs are ground clean and they've been given a coating of graphite. It's time to put them all back together. So I have a brand new, I'd call this a kingpin, but call it a spring putter back together bolt. And that is a little long. It's got to be put in and then cut to length. So let's do that. So far so good. It's a fine thread and it's a very long one. fucking hell's going on there? So next, now these ones here, these bolts are 3/8 by, I think it might be a 24 thread, and I assume it's a fine thread, but the originals are like a countersunk screw head on them, which is not too good for getting them back out once they're all rusted in, but until I can find them to replace, I'm going to stick these in for now. Should have a socket around here somewhere. And there's 2 of those. Should also be noted that the springs on this vehicle are all specific to where they come from. Like the driver's side front is different to the driver's side left, and it's heavier because it's there to compensate the weight of the driver, and also for the back as well, so they're not interchangeable, so to speak. Front and back, or left or right. I'm using a little bolt here. I'm just inserting it down into the bushing, and that's going to enable me to strike it without damaging the bushing. And then I'm going to need some weight on the spring itself. Piece of metal underneath to make it firm, because this is going to be tough. And try and gently whack it in. At the very beginning, fools you. It almost goes in a little easy. Tell you what, I'm a great example, aren't I, for safety in the workshop? Didn't expect that. Shockingly easy. And here's the comparison between our restored and yet to be leaf springs. The left side has these interesting brackets. Releasing them requires a visit to Paul's workshop for a session with a fire torch. Only one side on each bracket needs to be opened to allow the pack to be split apart. Now we must focus on the bushes in the rear spring hangers, and this will not be fun. So I know I've waffled on a lot about these spring hangers, but it seems that the outer core of metal has just become at one with them. And on the other side as well, you can see how I've started to damage the outer rim of the hole in the spring hanger. So it is looking to me, definitely this one's coming off, and maybe even the other one as well. I'm finding it absolutely impossible to be able to smash these bushes out, probably because they've been in there from the very beginning. What I fear the most, however, is up the front. The bushes in there could be quite worrisome, because if I can't bash them out, I don't know how I'm going to get around that. So we have here our spring hanger cut off, and you can see the amount of damage and rust in there, justifying its removal. However, as I feared, there are some problems here on the side of the chassis. There are rust holes just above where the new one The new one was to fit on just above where this is holes in the chassis. So this is somewhat out of my level of expertise. I'm going to have to carefully strategize and come up with options as to what the best course of action will be from here on. How to repair that. We've encountered quite a snag in our progression, and there's no doubt that the location of this rust will compromise the structural integrity of this vehicle and must be addressed. Stay tuned for the next episode called Big Trouble in Little Workshop.